Everyone, my name is Raymond Uditeo. I'm the Business Development Account Manager at Matrix C&I. And we're here with Robin and Dion, our engineers, to talk about Matrix's journey to our MSP offering and the particulars around network management and monitoring, which are very pertinent in the industry and with our customers today. We wanted to give insights from our perspective with regards to these platforms, where the market's at, the challenges that we're seeing, what we've experienced firsthand, and thought it would be valuable for our customer base as well as those that want to listen in to get an insight into where we see the market moving, some of those challenges, and just our journey and what we've experienced, so that it may be valuable and helpful to all of those that are listening in. So Robin and Dion, thank you for joining. We have this recording session and just really wanted to start off with a definition about network monitoring and network management from your perspective, what the differences are there, and your take on what's suitable.
Yeah, sure. I'll start that off. Two different solutions: network monitoring versus network management. Network monitoring is all about visibility, data gathering and analysis, understanding what your trends are, what the behavior in your network is, etc., having a baseline and having an understanding overall of what that holds, the whole thing holds. And it also gives you indications of when things are down. It has alert systems, etc. Now, the same thing falls into the network management space as well, but additionally, what you're doing is you're managing your devices. So you're pushing off configurations and everything else through your network managing tool. So it gives more focus on the actual configuration of the devices and maintaining those devices. So it is a double, it's a combination tool when we say network management, because you have the network monitoring as well as the management piece in there. Yeah. Hope that defines both the solutions.
Yeah. And because of that, the difference is there. Obviously, our customers and what we're looking at, is going to be determinant on what's going to be best fit. So, is there some cases that the solutions do both? When you're looking at our journey as well, did you consider them independent of each other, or did you look at them based on what we've seen in customer environments? Could you give us some information on what you kind of looked at from our perspective?
Yeah, look, I'll got this one for you. Look, I guess this one's there's a bit of a rock and a hard place. It's very, very customer based and vendor solution based. It's a weird way to come at it, but it is very situational based. So obviously with many of the vendors these days, they're moving towards cloud-based management platforms. These cloud-based management platforms are offering all of those monitoring functionalities, data collection functionalities, and then also offering that management overlay for configuring your devices, and it works pretty well. The downfall with those solutions is that they're very specific to the vendor. They're very specific to the vendor's hardware, and they kind of limit you within the product sets that those vendors support. So that becomes quite challenging. So we're actually seeing a bit of a trend now where both are actually very feasible solutions. As in the past, you used to pick one solution, you deploy it, it gets done, you walk away, it does its job, right? You're delivering your service. Now what we're seeing is that because of these network management tool sets coming in from the vendors, the customers are deploying them, and then they're still overlaying their own network monitoring tool sets over it, because they're now dealing with multi-vendor solutions. So, if you're dealing with your Cisco Meraki's versus your Arubas versus, let's say Mist as an example, since we're a network-focused company, all three of those, if you've got any form of hybrid, you've now got two different management platforms, two different data collection platforms, and two different bits of visibility to your network. So it's actually not uncommon now to start seeing companies put in their own network monitoring tools that sit over the top. Be those network monitoring tools actively polling the network versus those tools polling the vendor solutions and pulling the data. It still achieves the same result, but that's kind of what we're seeing now, where that hybrid between the both is becoming more of a bigger use case. Yeah, more common.
And in terms of where those network management tools and monitoring tools in terms of the trends are located? I know cloud, there's been a big push towards going with that. Are you finding that that's the case in the trends with regards to where you can actually set that up and how those are accessible?
Yeah, look, I think from a vendor's space, you're handcuffed here in the nicest way possible. You're pretty much going to be driven down the cloud pathway. When it comes to your network monitoring tools, there's still a lot of flexibility in this space. There's still a lot of on-prem based solutions. There are a few, fancy cloud-based solutions that are starting to pop up now. So at least in the monitoring space, you've got flexibility in which pathway suits your environment. But when it comes to the customers, to the vendors and the management platforms, you're kind of driven into that cloud platform. You don't really have an alternate at this stage.
And do you see benefit can you explain any of the benefits that cloud might provide, or any of those types of things, and why some of these solutions are kind of moving that way?
Yeah. All right. Well, look, when the vendor products do come in, they have a very neatly integrated solution that's in place. So for example, the switches, the wireless access point, we're talking about from a monitoring plus a management perspective, they do a brilliant solution. So you have one platform that manages that whole infrastructure that is that specific vendor's products. But the minute you have to introduce something else, that changes the whole ball game at that moment. So but yes, we're seeing a lot of benefits from that angle. And if a customer has an in-house environment where they just have that particular vendor, it's perfect.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it also adds scalability. It is, again, it's going to be a very customer dependent scenario. It's going to be a very unique scenario to yourself, like to each individual customer. It's going to come down to scalability. Obviously, the cloud offers really good scalability. And you have direct linear cost associations with that scalability. If you don't go cloud, you need to do a bit more of a CapEx based model, but it's super dependent on how much your environment's expected to move and change, and if you get those benefits. Like if you've got a very static environment, then the cost returns of cloud may not be as beneficial. You may be better with an on-prem based model, but if you've got a very fluid environment, it's constantly growing or changing in scale, then 100% cloud's going to be better, because it's designed to stretch, scale up, scale down, and meet those needs.
And the whole idea behind the cloud is you got this one single data lake of information where you're actually using the AI environment to understand different kinds of traffic flows and behavior patterns, etc. And it also actually gives you solutions to telling you, you potentially have an issue here. Take a look at this, fix it up. So you do have that advanced features when you go down that path. But
Okay. That's really insightful. I guess that's a bit of context around how things have changed a little bit. And I just want to pivot a little bit into, our process and our journey as well, because network monitoring, network management, it is core functionality for all of our customers. But with regards to our journey and helping those customers, and associatively the products that we're moving into with regards to MSP, we've had a lot of touch with regards to what's out there in the market over the past couple of years. So just wanted to start off with a little bit of context around our journey as Matrix C&I as well, because I think that would help in an assessment level and what we're looking at from the market, because it determines how we're going to best suit our customers. Can you give us a little bit of a starting on the journey that we've taken?
Definitely. So I guess I'll sort of start this question. I'll let you can probably maybe come up back end and finish it. I guess the way we started down this journey, we were engaging with a lot of customers, and obviously this is we're talking quite a while ago now. We started talking to a lot of customers that started expressing a lot of difficulties in managing their own networks, and these difficulties ranged from the fact that they were struggling to find people that had, just struggling to find the right skill sets for their business, and struggling to manage their budgets while achieving the skill sets they need to deliver on their networks and the business requirements and what was being demanded out of those networks. So in a lot of those conversations, that's sort of where we sat in. We used to augment a lot of our customers, and in the long run, those costs still sort of started in not trying to make it look in a bad light, but those costs started to blow out a bit for our customers, right? Because it moved from a point where they were managing their network to they were getting us involved almost all the time for even basic BAU tasks because they just didn't have the skills or the capabilities. And so that started blowing their budgets out again. And that's kind of where we started walking down that path of MSP and having those conversations with customers going, how about we come in and take ownership of your network, are probably better words for that, but we take over those networks and we manage them from go to woe, and we engage with the business. We make sure that those networks are delivering on the expected business outcomes. So that kind of what started us on this pathway. When we started this pathway, we started to adopt the customer's tool sets. So we were trying to build environments that were adaptive and taking advantage of customers' investments up until that point in time, because we don't want to take the customers' investments and throw them in the bin, right? We want to make sure that they still get their return of investment, they still see their shelf life and run that out. So we took on a lot of those different tool sets. And as we brought on more and more customers, that's when obviously that friction starts to build. We start to see very similar problems to our customers. We're now dealing with 5, 10, 20 different tool sets, all trying to manage different environments, different networks. It becomes very stop and go every time you need to change task or change customer or pick up a different job. So that's sort of what started us in that journey, I guess, is probably the best way to explain it.
Yeah, exactly. We were having those siloed solutions for each customers and having to manage those tools as well as managing their, having a look at the monitoring. For example, when we come in, the first thing we want to do is keep a track on what's happening on the network. So these network monitoring or management tools is what we look at and rely on for getting the feedback of that information. Now you've got 7 to 8 different customers with different solutions that we need to start staring at, and that's starting to complicate the team's visibilities and
different integrations, different reporting technologies.
That's right. Yeah, it just started becoming a complex network, which we just were having a hard time to keep track of, and so we started that journey over there.
It sounds fairly reminiscent of a customer journey as well, being that over time that network will grow and you have different monitoring management tools that come out from different vendors, and having to look at those and then maybe potentially assess the next step, which would be to consolidate, have a look at something that really build across a large and varied environment, and that's pretty similar probably to what I'm hearing as well in the market. Where did you start with solutions and actually looking at the different options that were available to us and that might suit customers as well?
It's up to you. Do you want to kick this one off?
I guess that's where it all kicked off in gear, right? The minute we started looking at that, we said, no, this can't happen and we can't scale like this. So we wanted to have a single platform that's going to start presenting all the information that we need, that's necessary, do the triggers, the alerts, the alteration, the integrations with our ticketing systems and so on, that can be achieved with this single platform. And it has to be able to get all the information that we need from all these various clients. Once we started looking at that, we started listing out our requirements. And that's where we started calling out, this is what we need to start looking at. And the products that we looked at was like Zabbix, PRTG, SolarWinds, Logic Monitor, and then vendor-specific.
The usual bunch.
Yeah, exactly. The vendor-specific ones, which were like Aruba Central, Mist, Cisco Meraki. We were trying to look at everything that was out there in the market so that we can try to get the best one that'll suit our requirements. But I guess the main thing is about the requirements.
Yeah, we looked across the board. We looked at all the usual, and I think not just did we look at them, but we also had experience with them.
Especially at the customer environment.
Like we've used every single tool set across our different customer environments. So I think that helped us, as well as what solutions we compare and look at. I guess, we looked at all of those because they were in our customer environments. We're actively using them as part of that early phases of taking on those customer networks. So we had good experience and exposure across all those different platforms pretty early on. So it actually kind of helped us compare the solutions really quickly.
I'm sure having a lot of experience in playing with those tool sets and seeing the development across everywhere to give you a good baseline. Which is fortunate for us, but in customers in the same boat probably don't get the time or, you know, allowance to test every single one. So with regards to, you know, those requirements, which is a good starting point and obviously a logical one, how did you formulate your requirements for this, and what insights could you give in regards to you know, some of those key factors that you were looking at?
Yeah, look, that's a pretty big list. I think to keep it simple and not to go into too far into the weeds on that one, I think some of the high level things that we sort of took in and looked at and said, look, these are our requirements when we try to pick a platform. So for example, cost to integrate and support the solution was top of our list, right? There's no point picking any of those solutions and then it costs us an arm and a leg, which you know, that cost has to be passed on to the customer, which then makes us not competitive in the market. So cost and the ability to support the solution, it was definitely very much up there. The next big one that we sort of ticked off is being vendor agnostic. Now in today's network space, that's getting more and more difficult to be vendor agnostic with these solutions. But that was a very big important aspect for us, is they need to be vendor agnostic, so we can support whatever our customers bring to our environments, and that way we can make sure we're supporting their business needs. Some other quick things: needs easy integration with our automation tool sets, needs easy integration with ticketing tool sets, so it needs to be very simple and easy and doesn't require a lot of effort or development. Needs to be customizable to meet our service offerings. So, you know, as our service offering develops, we need this platform to be able to adhere to our new offerings or what we want to bring to market, and that's a pretty big challenging component on its own.
Yeah, just can you expand a little bit on that one? Just because, you know, the nature of evolving networks and what we will see is obviously something that would resonate with customers. So just the openness of what you're looking at and what kind of facets in regards to, you know, what does that mean? What does open mean in our perspective, and how could we expand or scale? Is it just a scale thing? Is it, you know, the ability to have multiple vendors in one single platform? You know, that's for you guys is what was important.
Look, based on what you said, all of the above, but but I guess it needs to customize to what we require as an offering as well. In the sense, say for example, we have customers that are 12/7, and we got other customers by 12/5. Now we need to make sure that we're having alerts raised up for the customer that's 12/7 or 24/7 within those windows. You know, triggering the right alerts, triggering the right information to actually. So the team is only flagged those particular ones so that we can continue functioning those offerings that we put in place, you know, to meet our SLAs or SLOs and so on as part of the MSP offering. And also, as you said, the scaling factor, which is we don't want one solution that's going to have a limit of up to say 10,000 devices and that's it. No, we need to be able to go more. We need to be able to scale up or scale down according to what the client's requirements are. So, and if we're going to bring on more customers, that's the main thing as well. We want to be able to bring those customers. And again, this team should be able to have one single pane of glass to have a visibility across that whole environment. Of every other customer.
Yeah, look, and I think one of the other things to add to that too is to tick off that question about meeting our service offering. We also need a platform that we know, you know, we talk about networking, we're network specialists, but sometimes we do get, you know, obscure requirements, and we need a platform that can meet those obscure requirements. So they may not meet the necessary bounds of networking or network monitoring, but there's still something that we need to keep an eye on. We need to understand its status, its information about it. So that sort of was a very key point, that yes, you know, we've got tool sets that work really well at monitoring, but we need to be able to make sure that they can monitor all these different systems outside of what we would do sometimes.
Yeah. And processing the information as well, and providing reports, right? So many clients are very customized reports. They want to have specific information. I want to know the PoE that's being used in a particular site in this building. And we should be able to pump that report out easily with these kind of tool sets. So those kind of things were looked at as well. We're talking about many other things. Are we looking at CPU utilizations that are going up, etc. So monthly reports, annual reports.
Segregated access was a big important thing.
Correct. Yeah.
Multi-tenancy and segregated access were hand in hand. So multi-tenancy, because obviously trying to provide a service offering to our customers, it doesn't make sense to build individual siloed solutions for each customer, because that just blows out costs. So we needed a solution that can be multi-tenanted, so they can feed all into the same platform, but still provide segregated access, so those customers only have access to their data sets. And that's a really big, important aspect too.
Yeah.
And then I guess, the typical, what does a network monitoring tool need to do? Trend and baseline monitoring, and collecting usable and what I would say actionable information for our NOC team. Those two, they're just a typical network. Every networking tool can do that, but we had to, you have to include it and take it into consideration, because each tool does that differently.
Yeah, you touched on the multi-tenancy. That's going to be massive for us, but also segregated access, and more so just the security side is probably where I wanted to get into a little bit more as well, knowing that cybersecurity is such a big piece of all of this. How much did security, and looking at that kind of aspect across the tool sets, knowing that network management in particular, but even monitoring is, and the data collection with regards to that, how big of a security perspective or lens did you put on this when you were having a look at the solutions as well?
Always on top of our mind.
Even though we're network specialists, we actually believe a lot of the network solutions we deliver have to drive and be stemmed in basic network security or security concepts. And that means that we're delivering more secure networks, and we're ahead of the game in this space. Our customers are starting to now really demand this, and luckily we've been doing this from the get-go, so we're way ahead of this. When it came to this platform, segregated access is really important, especially when you're dealing with customer data. It's confidential, it's private. I know we're only talking network monitoring, but you'd be surprised what you can do with data mining these days. And just even having access to that information, someone with the know-how to data mine could actually get some pretty critical information about a customer. So it's important keeping that separated. Also, getting that data from the customer environment. So that's another big challenge. A lot of MSP environments were very static in how they were built. We don't have a giant, be frank, we're not a giant ISP. We don't have a big ISP backing us. So getting access to these sites and getting in data connectivity into these sites is a very different conversation to what, a big ISP would do and how they would achieve it. So for us, we need to make sure we're doing that data connectivity in a cost-effective way, which may sometimes rely on, for example, public accessible resourcing, so just basic public internet, NBN. So we have to make sure that any data we collected, we have to make sure it's 100% secured from the point it's collected all the way through into our data center, to make sure that it's secured all along that transition, and then processed and managed, and then obviously not accessed by those who shouldn't be accessing it.
And especially with the segregated access, the idea is we've authorized team personnel who are allowed to make changes, etc. So what we do is we also give particular access, saying that nope, you only have that read access to a particular environment. Focus on that. Once you're skilled up, move on to the next level. That's when you get more access, etc. So it allows us internally also to control and manage that. All right.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like there's a big wish list and a big requirements list that looks across a lot of facets. So how did you, what have you settled on with regards to, what we're moving forward with, and how did you come to that with regards to implementation, and how is that progressing?
So so the tool set we ended up on was Zabbix. So Zabbix is a enterprise grade open source project. One of the cool things about Zabbix is that it's driven by a company who develops this product for enterprise grade solutions. And the way they make money off their product is not by selling the product, but by fundamentally overlaying support over their products, right? And this is becoming a bit of a common trend now in the world, where a lot of people are now developing software, giving it for free, and then selling support services over the top. So we end up coming to the conclusion to go down the path of Zabbix, because this helped us manage costs. It was extremely scalable.
Yep.
It ticked all the boxes for multi-tenancy.
Integrations.
It ticked all those boxes, but even better, it's not just a network. It's not just a network monitoring tool. Like it's a monitoring tool for IT. Right. So in our particular case, we're going to be using it for monitoring network-based infrastructure. But one of our requirements is to be able to, meet our service offerings. We're not sure as a business where we might take our MSP, where we might grow into. And so Zabbix has that ability to grow into other facets of the IT industry, like, for example, servers or VM monitoring. It's got AWS monitoring, Azure monitoring capabilities. So it's got all of these extra monitoring capabilities that go way above beyond what you would need at a network layer or for a NOC team. But yes, we're not going to be using them today, but who knows what the future holds. And the best part is now that we've picked this platform, if we do decide to move into those facets and those offerings, the platform's able to do that, as a lot of the other tool sets were either very vendor agnostic, so we can't really offer those, and the other tool sets were specifically just network monitoring. So that's kind of how we ended up with that Zabbix tool set.
Yeah, and it's good to call that out, because those VMs were starting to look very important nowadays, right?
Yeah.
We're having a lot of these appliances that are becoming virtual. They need to be monitored. Then you got your actual servers that we spin up for local servers that we're using for network purposes.
Yeah.
Those need to be monitored as well. So that list is slowly growing. Yes, we're not a server space, but yes, we do have servers as well. Yeah.
How does a traditional vendor play in your ecosystem as well? Do you use multiple tool sets, and is Zabbix kind of the overarching piece that kind of allows you to automate and customize, or do you see that this kind of more vendor agnostic is going to be better in terms of a customizable and more flexible and more scalable thing that would kind of look at an alternative to traditional vendor specific?
Feels like a loaded question to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you go.
Oh, look, I was just going to say, there's nothing that's going to stop you in the future to come out with this brilliant product that's going to meet all these requirements and be having the ability to scale up and down as needed, right? We've got the cloud compute now everywhere, essentially. So why not? Something like, we've come across some of the products like Logic Monitor that kind of meets most of those kind of requirements also. But there is a cost factor to it when you come to the enterprise space, right?
Sure.
I guess that's where the open source for organizations for us that are growing and
yeah,
exactly, it is brilliant. We learn what's going to be it allows us to grow into that space as well. It allows us to scale up in a decent ROI, I guess.
Yeah. Helps manage our costs. So when we talk about costs, like our costs are quite predictable. Obviously, we're going to, you want support on your infrastructure, but it also means our compute costs become predictable, which means any of those unassociated costs for us providing our service to our customers are predictable, and they're also more sustainable, right? That's a big thing, is sustainability these days, and especially when it comes to costs. And making sure that this solution is sustainable to our customers and they can actually afford it, because we all know that ICT costs are starting to blow budgets very quickly, especially with the way all the trends are going and the way you get funneled into these tool sets.
Yeah.
Talking not just about the tool sets, but obviously the people and the process, which are the other pieces of the puzzle and very important. For a customer that might be listening in, what type of considerations would they have with regards to what choices they might make from that perspective regarding people? So just for example, did your team need to get upskilled? Would you say that an open source or the pathway that we've taken is more suited to large ICT teams that have the ability to work on customization? Is there any kind of insights on that? The people, and what would be very relevant to what type of organization or what type of skilled team that they might have for consideration?
So I think the best way to answer this is for the NOC based team, there was no real upskilling required. At the end of the day, it's no different to any other network monitoring tool set out there, right? The basics are pretty simple. The way you add a device to be monitored, the parameters you add to a device to what to monitor, a lot of that stuff, all of that is pretty straightforward. The learning curve to implement such a solution is definitely a lot higher than, for example, if you go a closed ecosystem solution or a proprietary solution, right? Because in a lot of those cases, they're sold as appliances, or they're sold as a basic installer file. You double click and it runs its installer, and your solution's up and running. So there is definitely a learning curve when you go this pathway, because there tends to be a lot more tinkering. But the benefit of that is it offers much better scalability, flexibility, redundancy. So yeah, we had to put a bit of effort into the team who had to implement and build the infrastructure to deploy it. But once it's deployed, the NOC team, no different to any other networking team that would be monitoring infrastructure. The concepts behind what they have to do, plug and play almost.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, it is an open source program. So the best part is you've got a community of support. Massive community of support that actually provides a lot of information, solutions. You can go anywhere and find this based on those kind of forums or YouTubes.
IT organizations all over the world, deploy this tool set, and they all help each other in making sure that this tool set works and continue to develop and grow it. And it's basically being part of I don't know how to really say it, but basically being a good neighbor,
like a community, and
being part of a good community. Right? We're not only are we taking from the community to deploy these tool sets and develop a business and a solution, but it also has the ability for us to give back to that community. And it becomes a self-feeding community that becomes so much more powerful than sort of sometimes sitting in those other silos.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. In the traditional sense, with a lot of the proprietary vendors that may provide these certain things, do we think that from what we've seen, the training offerings and that community is there across the board from what you've assessed across all the different products that you looked at, not just what we've ended up with?
Look, I think it's specific. It's product specific and sometimes vendor specific. You'll come across some vendors where there's a really good community of people, and they all want to, they develop a very similar culture. And then you come across other products where things tend to be very hidden or behind closed doors. Yeah. So it is something to look out for when you compare the solutions. And this applies to everything within ICT, within IT, to be honest. Everything you look at, every vendor, every solution, every offering has some of those pros and cons or caveats. But yeah, definitely for us, embracing into solutions that have a good community, a good culture, and those abilities to work with other entities within the organization, not just within Australia, but across the world is quite important, because it just means we can keep developing and building better platforms, basically.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think that feedback loop is very important. And I know that, the vendors do put a lot of effort into that and their training resources as well. Just to cap off, what are the biggest challenges and considerations for our customers that might be either looking at tailoring, expanding, or changing their network monitoring or management platforms in their own right? Give some insight into what they might think about if they're looking at the market, or considering what they might be doing.
Yeah, look, I think the first thing you want to understand is, what do you want your network to look like from a network aspect, at least? Based on that, you silo your products, you understand what your vendors are. And then if it's a single vendor, guess what? You have a very good solution from the vendor itself, these centralized management and monitoring tools. So why not leverage that? So you weigh in the options over there and go ahead with that. The other side is, if you're going to have a cocktail of products, okay, now you want to have something that is a little more open to other vendors, right? So that's kind of monitoring tool or management tool that you're looking. Then you go ahead and look at the other options, is what kind of integrations that you want, or what level of triggers that you want, how much of it is customizable, and so on. It's basically working down that list of requirements, but you got to first figure out what those requirements are. What are our needs? what are the products we're looking at? Can these products be met with these kind of particular applications and so on? And then just work down the requirements list.
I think the biggest thing going through this pathway that we learned is that a lot of these projects quite often get rushed or pushed through because, you know, a product has become end of life, or there's a drive for change within the business. And what ends up happening is there's a lot of people end up rushing to solutions and then picking something, deploying it, and then actually regretting that choice. I think the biggest thing we learned, and one of the things I'm glad we did, is we took our time to really develop that list of requirements first and really understand what we need out of this space. And yeah, there was pressure for us to move the project along, but you know, we really held our ground and made sure we developed that list and properly understood it. Because once we understood properly, it allowed us to really assess that market properly. And I think that's probably the biggest piece we took, at least I took away from it, is take your time, don't rush into it. Obviously, you know, being a, you know, if you're a customer of ours or not, reach out to us. We can obviously guide you in some of these conversations, and we can take you through this journey. But yeah, I think really that's the biggest thing I learned. Take your time, build that list, and really, like, even once you think that list is built, even sit on it for a few weeks, and you'll probably find another requirement or two that pops up, or you might want to tweak it. And then once you've done that, you can really settle in on focus on and assessing that network and come out with a good solution.
And the best part is you can always go back to what you have as a team that is managing this as a BAU, and go and ask them the questions. What are your main concerns? And figure out, you know, what those tick boxes are that will meet those particular needs of that team, so that that makes their life easy, instead of them drilling down on a particular device, finding more information, drilling through logs, etc. How much of this information can I gather from that end device that will then display it for me in a easy, manageable, digestible information, right? So all that information is readily available with your BAU team. They will be like, yep, we want this, and this, so that we can do this. So yeah, asking the questions is a big thing.
That's a good point too.
Yeah, very good point. Okay. Well, thank you for your time, gentlemen. That's the wrap for us, and appreciate your insights on regards to network management and monitoring. And thank you. And if there's any other questions that anyone watching this has, we'll share details as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.